Flower arranging.
Flower arranging.
Flower bed.
Flower bed.
Flower child.
Flower child.
Flowered.
Flowered.
A flowered silk dress.
Flower girl.
Flower girl.
Flowering.
Flowering.
The 19th century saw a flowering of science and technology.
Flower pot.
Flower pot.
Flower power.
Flower power.
Flowery.
Flowery.
A flowery cotton dress. A flowery meadow.
Have flowery perfume.
Flowery language.
Flowing.
Flowing.
She had pale skin and dark flowing hair.
Long flowing robes.
A flowing melody.
Flowing curves.
Flown. Flown.
Flew.
Flew.
Stephen's still in bed with flu.
She's got the flu.
I couldn't go because I had flu. The spread of the flu virus.
Doctors now fear a flu epidemic. Flub.
Flub.
Several of the actors flubbed their lines.
Fluctuate.
Fluctuate.
Prices were volatile, fluctuating between $20 and $40.
The number of children in the school fluctuates around 100.
Insect populations fluctuate wildly from year to year.
Fluctuation.
Fluctuation.
The fluctuation in interest rates.
Prices are subject to fluctuation.
Flew.
Flew.
Fluent.
Fluent.
She was fluent in English, French, and German.
He spoke in fluent Italian.
He was a fluent and rapid prose writer.
She rose with the fluent movement of an athlete. She rose with the fluent movement of an athlete. He spoke French fluently.
Fluff.
Fluff.
He was picking bits of fluff off his trousers.
A ball of carpet fluff. The chicks were just balls of yellow fluff.
A magazine full of pop and fashion fluff.
He fluffed his shot and missed the goal. He fluffed his shot and missed the goal.
She fluffed her lines in the first scene. She fluffed up the pillows for me.
Fluffy.
Fluffy.
A fluffy little kitten. Fluffy towels.
Cream the butter and sugar until the mixture is light and fluffy. Her new book is a fluffy romantic fantasy.
Fluid.
Fluid.
He is not allowed solid food yet, only fluids.
A powerful cleaning fluid.
A loose, fluid style of dancing.
Fluid ounce.
Fluid ounce.
Fluke.
Fluke.
He agreed that the second goal was a fluke.
A fluky win.
Flume.
Flume.
A log flume.
Flummoxed.
Flummoxed.
I was completely flummoxed by the whole thing.
Flung.
Flung.
Flunk.
Flunk.
Tony flunked chemistry last semester.
She hadn't done the work, so I flunked her.
Ben flunked out of college.
Flunky.
Flunky.
One of his flunkies let me in.
Fluorescent.
Fluorescent.
A fluorescent pink t-shirt.
Fluoridate.
Fluoridate.
Fluoride.
Fluoride.
Fluorine.
Fluorine.
Fluorocarbon.
Fluorocarbon.
The problem of pollution from fluorocarbons.
Flurried.
Flurried.
Jack never seemed to be flurried, even when they were very busy.
Flurry.
Flurry.
After a quiet spell, there was a sudden flurry of phone calls.
The day started with a flurry of activity.
He opens the door and a flurry of snow blows in. He opens the door and a flurry of snow blows in. Snow flurries are expected overnight.
Flush.
Flush.
Susan flushed deeply and looked away.
He flushed angrily.
Robin felt her cheeks flush scarlet.
Mrs. Cooper flushed with indignation.
Why do children never remember to flush the loo?
She flushed the rest of her drink down the toilet. She flushed the rest of her drink down the toilet.
They flush clean water through the pipes once a day. The government is determined to flush out the terrorists.
The heating system needs to be flushed out once a year.
Drinking water helps flush out toxins from the body.
His words brought a warm flush to her face.
She felt a sudden flush of anger.
The flush isn't working properly.
A group of adolescent boys in the first flush of manhood. The spring brings a flush of young animals to the farm.
Make sure that the cupboard is flush with the wall.
I'm feeling flush at the moment.
Flushed.
Flushed.
He looked hot and rather flushed.
Her cheeks were flushed, her expression angry.
He leaned forward, his face flushed with anger.
The team is still flushed with success after their weekend victory.
Fluster.
Fluster.
Don't fluster me, or I'll never be ready on time.
Flustered.
Flustered.
Paul was looking flustered and embarrassed.
I always get flustered in interviews. Flute.
Flute.
Fluted.
Fluted.
Fluted stone columns.
Flutist.
Flutist.
Flutter.
Flutter.
A small bird fluttered past the window.
Dead leaves fluttered slowly to the ground.
The flag fluttered in the light breeze.
Her eyelids fluttered but did not open. She was all in a flutter.
His sudden resignation caused quite a flutter.
She felt a flutter of curiosity.
A flutter of wings.
Fluvial.
Fluvial.
Flux.
Flux.
Everything is in flux at the moment. The education system is still in a state of flux.
Fly.
Fly.
She's flying back to the States tomorrow.
Will you take the train there or fly?
Morris is nervous about flying, so he usually travels overland.
The Prime Minister will be flying to Delhi later today for a 3-day visit.
He was arrested at Heathrow after flying from Brussels Airport.
Lewis stopped off in Jamaica before flying on to Toronto. Lewis stopped off in Jamaica before flying on to Toronto.
The plane was attacked as it flew over restricted airspace. The plane was attacked as it flew over restricted airspace. The plane was attacked as it flew over restricted airspace.
She was the first woman to fly Concorde. The pilot was instructed to fly the plane to Montreal Airport. The pilot was instructed to fly the plane to Montreal Airport.
Sonny learned to fly when he was 15.
The injured boy was flown by air ambulance to the Royal London Hospital. The injured boy was flown by air ambulance to the Royal London Hospital.
US planes have been flying food and medical supplies into the area.
We usually fly economy class.
Millions of passengers fly British Airways every year.
Who was the first person to fly the Atlantic?
The mother bird will feed her chicks until they are able to fly.
The evening air was clouded with mosquitoes and other flying insects.
At that moment, a wasp flew in through the open window.
The robin shook its feathers and flew away.
Ellen flew across the room and greeted her uncle with a kiss.
Rachel's hand flew to her mouth.
The door flew open and a child rushed out.
There was a loud explosion, and suddenly there was glass flying everywhere.
William hit Jack on the head and sent his glasses flying. William hit Jack on the head and sent his glasses flying.
The ball bounced off the wall and went flying into the garden next door. The ball bounced off the wall and went flying into the garden next door. In the park, people were walking their dogs or flying their kites.
Harriet ran after him, her hair flying behind her.
After the invasion, people were forbidden to fly their national flag.
The flags were flying cheerfully in the breeze.
The government ordered that all flags should be flown at half-mast. The government ordered that all flags should be flown at half-mast.
Is it midnight already? Well, you know what they say, time flies when you're having fun. Is it midnight already? Well, you know what they say, time flies when you're having fun.
The following weeks flew by, and soon it was time to leave.
Rebecca flew into a rage when she realized no one had been listening to her.
Calm down, there's no need to fly off the handle. Calm down, there's no need to fly off the handle.
The prisoner let fly with a torrent of abuse.
The soldiers let fly with a hail of machine gun fire.
He likes to fly in the face of convention. By the time the police arrived, the men had flown.
The architectural firm has been flying high recently.
Now that the kids have flown the nest, I'm thinking about taking a job abroad. Now that the kids have flown the nest, I'm thinking about taking a job abroad.
News is that the plan for the new hotel isn't going to fly.
In my latest book, I wanted to fly the kite for an unfashionable theory. Rumours were flying as to how the fire started. Rumours were flying as to how the fire started.
All my children have flown the coop now.
Sometimes you'll get back and find that things have changed, so you'll be flying by the seat of your pants for a while. Sometimes you'll get back and find that things have changed, so you'll be flying by the seat of your pants for a while.
There were flies buzzing all around us.
He quickly did up his fly.
Your flies are undone. The only fly in the ointment was Jackie.
Ointment.
Fly.
Ointment.
I wish I'd been a fly on the wall during that conversation.
The code is translated on the fly.
So far, policy is being made on the fly.
Wear something really fly for your Friday date.
He's a bit of a fly character.
Fly away.
Fly away.
Fly ball.
Fly ball.
Fly blown.
Fly blown.
Fly boy.
Flyboy.
Fly by.
Fly by.
Fly by night.
Fly by night.
Fly by wire. Fly by wire.
Fly catcher.
Fly catcher.
Fly drive holiday.
Fly drive holiday.
Flyer.
Flyer.
People were giving out flyers advertising the event.
She was one of the first solo flyers.
Delays are familiar to all regular flyers.
Fly fishing.
Fly fishing.
Fly half.
Fly half.
Flying.
Flying.
A story about a flying horse.
The appeal has got off to a flying start, with over £200,000 raised in the first week. The appeal has got off to a flying start, with over £200,000 raised in the first week.
He took a flying leap and just managed to clear the stream.
Quite a lot of people are still nervous about flying.
Flying doctor.
Flying doctor.
Flying buttress.
Flying buttress.
Flying fish.
Flying fish.
Flying fox.
Flying fox.
Flying officer.
Flying officer.
Flying picket.
Flying picket.
Flying saucer.
Flying saucer.
Flying squad.
Flying squad.
The head of Scotland Yard's flying squad.
Flying tackle.
Flying tackle.
Flyleaf.
Flyleaf.
Fly on the wall.
Fly on the wall.
Flyover.
Flyover.
Flyover country. Flyover country. I feel happy at 20,000 feet, approaching flyover country, far above that wasteland between Manhattan and California.
Flypaper.
Flypaper.
Flypast.
Fly past.
Flysheet.
Fly sheet.
Flyswatter.
Fly swatter.
Fly tipping.
Fly tipping.
Flyweight.
Flyweight.
Flywheel.
Flywheel.
FM.
FM.
FO.
Foe.
Foal.
Foal.
Foam.
Foam.
A foam mattress.
The sea was covered in foam.
Firefighters using water and foam are still tackling the blaze. Shaving foam.
The green water splashed and foamed over the rocks.
Fob.
Fob.
She fobbed him off with a promise to pay him the money next week. They tried to fob me off with a cheap camera.
Fobwatch.
Fobwatch.
Focaccia.
Focaccia.
Focal.
Focal.
This issue has now become the focal centre of interest.
Focal length.
Focal length.
Focal point.
Focal point.
The pool is the focal point of the hotel.
The new tax has been the focal point for much discussion.
Forecastle.
Forecastle.
Focus.
He needs to focus more on his career.
She tried to focus her mind on her work.
We need to focus public attention on this issue.
She turned the camera and focused on Martin's face.
He focused his binoculars on the building opposite.
All eyes focused on her.
His eyes were focused straight ahead.
The focus of recent research has been on environmental issues.
The war in Afghanistan had become the focus of media attention.
The focus of interest in the series is what goes on in everyday life. Another focus of feminist debate has been the film industry. I shall now turn to the main focus of this essay.
Eggs became the focus for the food poisoning scare.
The focus of the conference shifted from population growth to the education of women.
Our main focus is on helping people get back into work.
A shift of focus. These issues have recently come into sharp focus.
He raised his binoculars and adjusted the focus.
Focus group.
Focus group.
Focused.
Focused.
I've got to stay focused if I want to win this competition.
Fodder.
Fodder.
The murders made prime fodder for newspapers.
FOE.
Foe.
Britain's friends and foes. Fetal.
Fetal.
A test to detect fetal abnormalities. A test to detect fetal abnormalities. A test to detect fetal abnormalities.
Fetal position.
Fetal position.
Fetus.
Fetus.
Fog.
Fog.
We got lost in the thick fog.
It will be a cold night, and there may be fog patches.
A blanket of fog covered the fields. The fog lifted in the afternoon.
My mind was in a fog.
The fog of tiredness.
Fog.
The windscreen had fogged up.
Fog-bound.
Fog-bound.
The airport was fog-bound.
Fogey.
Fogey.
You're turning into a real old fogey.
Foggy.
Foggy.
A foggy day in November.
Driving in foggy conditions.
None of us had the foggiest idea about how to put the tent up. None of us had the foggiest idea about how to put the tent up.
Foghorn.
Foghorn.
Fog lamp.
Fog lamp.
Foible.
Foible.
We all have our little foibles.
Foie gras.
Foie gras.
Foil.
Foil.
Cover the chicken with silver foil and bake.
Chocolates in foil wrappers. The simple stone floor is the perfect foil for the brightly coloured furnishings.
A massive arms smuggling plan has been foiled by the CIA.
Foist.
Foist.
I keep getting extra work foisted on me.
Fold.
Fold.
Fold the paper along the dotted line.
It'll fit in if you fold it in half.
Spoon the filling onto the dough, fold it over and press down the edges.
I wish you kids would fold up your clothes.
Spoon the filling onto the dough, fold it over and press down the edges.
He folded the map neatly.
The chairs fold flat for storage.
A useful little bed that folds away when you don't need it.
Can you fold the shutters back?
George stood silently with his arms folded.
A silver dagger folded in a piece of white cloth.
Next, fold in the sugar.
Bend back the card and cut along the fold.
Her dress hung in soft folds.
The church will welcome him back into the fold.
A former advocate of free market economics who had strayed from the fold. A former advocate of free market economics who had strayed from the fold.
Folder.
Folder.
Fold away.
Fold away.
Folding.
Folding.
Foliage.
Foliage.
Dark green foliage.
Folic acid.
Folic acid.
Folio.
Folio.
Folk.
Folk.
I'm sure there are some folk who would rather they weren't here. Thanks to the folks at NBC. Wait till the folks back home hear about this.
Young folk these days don't know the meaning of work.
Is it okay if I call my folks? That's all for now, folks. Simple country folk.
A folk singer.
Folk tales.
An Irish folk song.
Folk dance.
Folk dance.
Folk hero.
Folk hero.
Casey Jones is an American folk hero.
Folklore.
Folklore.
Folklorist.
Folklorist.
Folk music.
Folk music.
Folksy.
Folksy.
The town had a certain folksy charm.
Follicle.
Follicle.
Follow.
Follow.
Are those men following us?
The patrol car followed the BMW for a few miles and then lost it.
Tom's already gone out to Rome, and his wife and children will follow shortly.
Peggy followed her out onto the landing.
The agreement followed months of negotiation.
The assassination of Martin Luther King in 1968 was followed by that of Robert Kennedy.
After weeks of intense fighting, there followed a brief period of calm.
Most EU countries have signed the agreement, and the US is expected to follow shortly.
The chapters that follow deal mainly with mathematics.
In English, the letter Q is always followed by U.
We had vegetable casserole with a fruit salad to follow.
There followed several pages of incomprehensible statistics.
The winners are as follows. In third place, Mandy Johnson. In second place...
He followed the doctor's advice and had no further trouble.
Follow the instructions very carefully when filling in the form.
They followed the plan that Elizabeth had worked out. Just followed the signs for the airport. I followed Brown's directions and found the farm quite easily.
Some state schools follow the example of private schools in asking parents to donate money. Some state schools follow the example of private schools in asking parents to donate money.
Environmentalists are urging the government to follow the lead of Scandinavian countries in this matter. Environmentalists are urging the government to follow the lead of Scandinavian countries in this matter.
She's just like any young woman who enjoys following the latest fashions. He does not want to follow his father into a scientific career.
I followed the main road up the mountain.
Tom followed the track that leads to the old Roman road.
The road follows the line of the river.
I didn't quite follow what he was saying.
The plot is a little difficult to follow.
The conclusion that follows from these findings is that inner-city schools need more investment, not less. It doesn't necessarily follow that you're going to do well academically, even if you're highly intelligent.
Have you been following that crime series on TV?
I'd been following his progress very closely.
She just doesn't understand people who follow football or any other kind of sport.
In Australia, the weather follows a fairly predictable pattern.
Budget companies have been so successful that other airlines have had to follow suit and lower their fares. Budget companies have been so successful that other airlines have had to follow suit and lower their fares.
He is a doctor and expects his son to follow in his footsteps.
The book follows the plight of an orphaned Irish girl who marries into New York society. The book follows the plight of an orphaned Irish girl who marries into New York society.
We're looking for a replacement for Sue, but she's going to be a hard act to follow.
She followed Simon with her eyes as he walked to the gate. She followed Simon with her eyes as he walked to the gate.
It turned out we were both following the same line of research. It turned out we were both following the same line of research.
If you follow that idea to its logical conclusion, we'd have to ban free speech altogether.
Just follow your nose until you come to a small bridge.
I followed my nose to the kitchen, where Marcy was making coffee. After a few years in the detective gang, you learn to follow your nose.
She told him to go away and stop following her around.
The discussion sessions are supposed to follow on from this morning's lecture.
You go ahead. I'll follow on later.
The project went wrong when the staff failed to follow through.
If you have followed through all the exercises in this book, you should be ready for the second-year course.
The police take people's statements and then follow them up.
If there is no response to your press release, follow it up with a phone call.
This experiment was quickly followed up by others using different forms of the drug.
Follower.
Follower.
Marx and his followers were convinced that capitalism would destroy itself.
Followers of Sun Myung Moon, better known as Moonies.
He currently has over 5,000 followers on Twitter.
Following.
Following.
He was sick in the evening, but the following day he was better.
Payment may be made in any of the following ways: cheque, cash, or credit card.
The band has a big following in Europe.
The following have been selected to play in tomorrow's game: Louise Carus, Fiona Douglas. Following the President's speech, there will be a few minutes for questions.
Thousands of refugees left the country following the outbreak of civil war.